Henry Ward Beecher wrote, "When God thought of Mother, he must have laughed with satisfaction and framed it quickly. So rich, so deep, so divine, so full of soul, power, and beauty was the conception." Edgar Allan Poe wrote, "The angels whispering to one another can find among their burning terms of love none so devotional as that of Mother." It's been quite a few years since I celebrated motherhood in a program. This is my tribute to all those women who shape and nurture our lives. Alice E. Allen from My Mother's Garden wrote, "Sweet as the breath of roses blown, the fragrance of her life." I'm Don Jackson with a tribute to mothers past, present, and future, with the heartbeat of the Internet. Before my mother moved out of the home she lived in for a good deal of her married life, I would often drop by to help with some of the chores my father did. He passed away just as my daughter was being born. While mowing the lawn, I couldn't help but see some of the trees and flowers she planted. It's a remarkably easy way to understand the character of a parent who tended to growing things, not only the children she raised, but all the other life she tended to as well. My grandmother planted a climbing rose at the back of our house before I was born. My mother continued to tend to it until a burglar attempted to break into her house. He stepped on the spigot of an outside tank and drowned the rose in oil for the furnace. My wife is quite the gardener too. You can tell a lot about her personality by what she plants and where she determines is the best location for her flowers. I recently posted a photo of our magnificent magnolia tree in full bloom. We also planted another variety when my son was born. Both are living tributes to the children she so lovingly cares for. Our gardens in the back feature perennials and bushes that bloom in waves from spring through fall. Her gardens are considered to be her work in progress. She's always taking the time to shape and tend to her garden, trying to make her small part of the world into a thing of beauty. I think mothers everywhere will appreciate the words of Kate Douglas Wiggin. Among the thousands of things growing up all over the land, some of them under my very wing, watched and tended, unwatched and untended, loved, unloved, protected from danger, thrust into temptation. Among them somewhere is the child who will write the novel that will stir men's hearts to nobler issues and incite them to better deeds. There is the child who will paint the greatest picture or carve the greatest statue of the age. Another will deliver his country in an hour of peril. Another who will give his life for a great principle. And another, born more of the spirit than of the flesh, who will live continually on the heights of moral being, and dying, draw men after him. It may be that I shall preserve one of these children to the race. It is a peg big enough on which to hang a hope. For every child born into the world is a new incarnate thought of God, an ever fresh and radiant possibility. Pearl Buck remembers her mother this way. I remember she used often to look somewhat ruefully at her hands, those beautiful, useful, roughened hands of hers, so strong in the palm, so unexpectedly delicate and pointed in the fingers. Not small hands, but having spare and well-shaped lines. It was always her plan that one day she would stop plunging her hands into this and that. She was going to wear gloves when she gardened and use cold cream and have really nice hands. She loved the white hands of ladies, the skin soft and smooth, and the nails pink and tapering. But if she ever remembered to put on gloves, as sometimes once in a long time she did, sooner or later they would be off, and she would be grubbing about in the earth, looking up to say apologetically, "I seem to have to feel the roots are right. They won't grow otherwise. And I do like the feel of the earth." End quote. My mother, my wife, and my mother-in-law would all agree with Pearl Buck's mother. Cary Grant is perfect as Playboy and Bachelor Nicky Ferrante. Deborah Kerr also perfectly cast as nightclub singer Terry McKay in the memorable motion picture An Affair to Remember. She sets the stage for their meeting on board the ocean liner when she tells him, "My mother always told me never to enter a man's cabin in months ending in R." On a more serious note, Khalil Gibran in The Prophet wrote, "And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, 'Speak to us of children.' And he said, 'Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable." I think this story was by Renee R. Vroman. It's been around on the internet for some time. It's called The Gift from God. It was a warm summer day when God placed it in her hands. She trembled with emotion as she saw how fragile it appeared. This was a very special gift that God was entrusting to her, a gift that would one day belong to the world. Until then, he instructed her, she was to be its guardian and protector. The woman said she understood and reverently took it home, determined to live up to the faith God had placed in her. At first, she barely let it out of her sight, protecting it from anything she perceived to be harmful to its well-being, watching with fear in her heart when it was exposed to the environment outside of the sheltered cocoon she had formed around it. But the woman began to realize that she could not shelter it forever. It needed to learn to survive the harsh elements in order to grow strong. So with gentle care, she gave it more space to grow, enough to allow it to grow wild and untamed. One day she became aware of how much the gift had changed. It no longer had the look of vulnerability about it. Now it seemed to glow with strength and steadiness, almost as if it were developing a power within. Month after month, she watched as it became stronger and more powerful, and the woman remembered her promise. She knew deep within her heart that her time with the gift was nearing an end. The inevitable day arrived when God came to take the gift and present it to the world. The woman felt a deep sadness, for she would miss its constant presence in her life. With heartfelt gratitude, she thanked God for allowing her the privilege of watching over the precious gift for so many years. Straightening her shoulders, she stood proud, knowing that it was indeed a very special gift, one that would add to the beauty and essence of the world around it. And the mother let the child go. The words of the 1945 winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, Gabriela Mistral, words that I think every mother could identify with. She wrote, "When I am in heaven, may God give me no angel's wings to soothe the hurt in my heart. Spread instead across the sky the hair of the children I loved, and let their hair sweep forever in the wind across my face." A little boy goes to his mother to find out why she's crying for apparently no reason. He doesn't understand, and she explains that he will probably never understand. He then goes to his father to find out the reason why, but he can't answer the boy either. As it said in the story, the little boy grew up to be a man, still wondering why women cry. Finally, he put a call into God. When God got on the phone, the man said, "God, why do women cry so easily?" God said, "When I made woman, she had to be special. I made her shoulders strong enough to carry the weight of the world, yet gentle enough to give comfort. I gave her an inner strength to endure childbirth and the rejection that many times comes from her children. I gave her a hardness that allows her to keep going when everyone else gives up and take care of her family through sickness and fatigue without complaining. I gave her the sensitivity to love her children under any and all circumstances. Even when her child has hurt her very badly, the same sensitivity helps her to make a child's boo-boo feel better and shares in her teenager's anxieties and fears. I gave her strength to carry her husband through his faults. I gave her a tear to shed. It's hers exclusively to use whenever it is needed. It's her only weakness. It's a tear for mankind." It's interesting to note that Elvis's mother died at 42, the same age as her son. I can't think of anything that would be tougher for a parent to endure than to bury a child. This was recently being circulated on Facebook. I thought this the perfect occasion to share it with you. It's called Dear Mr. Hallmark. I am writing to you from heaven, and though it must appear a rather strange idea, I see everything from here. I just popped in to visit your stores to find a card of love for my mother, as this day is hard for her. There must be some mistake, I thought. Every card you could imagine, except I could not find a card from a child who lives in heaven. She is still a mother too, no matter where I reside. I had to leave. She understands, but oh, the tears she's cried. I thought that if I wrote you, that you would come to know that though I live in heaven now, I still love my mother so. She talks with me and dreams with me. We still share laughter too. Memories, our way of speaking now. Would you see what you could do? My mother carries me in her heart. Her tears she hides from sight. She writes poems to honor me, sometimes far into the night. She plants flowers in my garden. There my living memory dwells. She writes to other grieving parents, trying to ease their pain as well. So you see, Mr. Hallmark, though I no longer live on earth, I must find a way to remind her of her wondrous worth. She needs to be honored and remembered too, just as the children of earth will do. Thank you, Mr. Hallmark. I know you'll do your best. I've done all I can do. To you, I'll leave the rest. Find a way to tell her how much she means to me until I can do it for myself when she joins me in eternity. Have a very happy Mother's Day. Sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.